you've been around me, you know I've often remarked at how much I enjoy the season of Lent. I love Christmas and Halloween, but this season of Lent just is my favorite time of year. It's the spiritual, cultural, social connectedness. The way that people with or without religious inclinations and language lean into this kind of connection between ourselves, our neighbors, and yes, even sometimes the divine. So that's where the last two books I've written actually came from, was actually trying to provide language for and shape for this Lenten practice. So what's it look like for someone who just wants to connect with themselves, with their neighbor, and maybe even with God, to use language that actually works for their own lives? And so I provided words and asked Scott to pair those words with imagery, Scott Erickson. And so we produced a few years ago a book called Prayer, 4 Days of Practice. And then most recently, this book, it's called May It Be So. The difference between prayer, 40 days of practice, and May It Be So is 40 days with the Lord's Prayer. And the Lord's Prayer is a gift that Jesus gave the people who were following him. They were full-grown adults who came to him at some point and said, we don't know what we're doing with this prayer thing. Like, we have this desire in us to do it. We've seen you. We've seen the fruit of your life. We want whatever that is. And we don't really know exactly what it is we're doing. And he offered them this prayer, the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, etc., etc., etc. I wanted to approach that prayer the same way Scott and I had approached the practice of prayer in general, which, if you've picked up one of these books, you know that most of it's made up of relatively simple stuff, these very simple words and a short brief meditative image. So most of the book looks like this. So the prayer really simply says, this is like a whole day. It says, may I more clearly see my filters, blind spots, and biases, so that I might recognize goodness, truth, and beauty beyond them. That's the one prayer for the day. And this is an image that gets paired with this set of words. The idea being that words and imagery can work more like tools for formation. In other words, I'm shaped by just the mere practice of leaning into prayer daily. That I'm going to pick up these words, I'm going to hold on to them, and just doing that as a practice, and it forms me. That's something that actually changes the way I live. Similarly, like stopping and like letting my eyes rest on an image and letting that image get inside me, which actually takes me to the second part of how tools work. Specifically the tools in this book, but the tools of spiritual formation in general, is they shape they don't just shape, they actually help me excavate and get to what's actually going on in here. Because most of the predication of my work in general, but definitely my work in like pastoral ministry and art, is I actually believe that God's already up to something in the hearts, the minds, the lives, the households, the bodies of anyone I'm creating work for. And the best use of my skill set is to provide you with language, with shape, with like some kind of tool by which you can recognize, excavate into, see, reveal, and then practice and live out what you already see happening in your life. So a lot of my plan over the last few Lent seasons was going to be similar to this season, where a lot of these prayers and their paired images were going to be posted to Instagram and to Facebook and to Twitter, and there were a few other elements to this as well. And then I wanted to add this because so many things have changed about this season of Lent with the onset of the coronavirus. Over the next few, the sort of the rest of the time we have left between now and Easter, I'm going to read sections from this book. Like I said, most of it is made up of those really short prayers with their beautifully paired images, like this one that I was meditating on today with some friends, that says, may I have the wisdom to exchange control and safety for the opportunity to love and serve. Hanging out on that image of the whale on a boat, what's that draw out of you? Each section, after 6 of those, is capped off by this longer meditation. What I wanted to do is I wanted to dive into this gift that Jesus gave his the people who followed him. We now call the Lord's Prayer. That when they asked him as adults, we don't know what we're doing, help us to pray, he gave them this prayer that I've designed this book around. And instead of talking about like here are the words in the original, Aramaic, and here's what they were in the Greek, and here's where they're rooted in geography. All that stuff's important. I wanted to lean into to the Lord's Prayer the same way we leaned into the words and images that make up the rest of the book, which is to say, what does it draw out of you as a reader? What's it draw out of you when we pray, when you pray, Our Father? And so each section ends with a short meditation from me about what this prayer actually draws out of me. So just leading by example. I'm not saying this is what it should draw out of you. I'm saying this is what it looks like for me to pray the words, Our Father, and to look into my soul and see, like, what do these words do in here? And then maybe set a little bit of a tone for you to step into that same prayer. When you pray Our and Father, what happens in your guts? So beginning tomorrow, I'm going to be reading a section of this for the next few days leading up to Easter, and just as an offering, because again, I love this season. I love what it does and the opportunity it provides people to connect with one another, to connect with our neighbors, and to connect with the divine. I do what I do because I believe there's goodness, truth, and beauty happening all around you and I want to help us capture it, lean into it, and practice it.